Can you introduce yourself and provide a little background on your life in the 60s?
Okay, my name is Michelle Renee Hodek. I'm 77. I'm Noah's grandma. I was born in San Francisco. I grew up in Minnesota. Went to college in Ogden, Utah, and then went to Vietnam for 2 years. And that kind of ends. I came home in 69, so that kind of ends that era of the 60s.
What made you want to volunteer in the Vietnam War, and what did you do when you were out there?
I'd been a singer in the States before I left for Vietnam, and this band found out, and they lost their singer, so they asked would I fill in. And we went out, we did 3 shows, and about a year and a half later, we finally wrapped it up as far as the show was concerned. I had a comic from Vegas, I had dancers from Thailand, I had a band from the Philippines. We toured the entire country, clear up to North Vietnam, and did a lot of volunteer shows. A lot of for the hospitals and stuff. I mean, I wouldn't charge for that kind of thing. But we were rated by the Army to charge $500 a show. We would do up to 4 shows a day. And like I said, this went on for about a year and a half. At one point, I was home for 45 minutes in 2-3 months. I mean, it was insane. Anyway, after that, my husband went to work he left RMK and he booked my show. So that's and then he went to work for Philco Ford, and they built the largest tire recapping facility in the world in Da Nang. And I went to work as a private secretary for Colonel Rice for the RFPF division of I-Corps. It was just fascinating, really interesting. We made a lot of friends, American that were there that were working over, in the overseas contract as well. Friends that we kept even after we got back to the States. And we left there in 69. I had gotten a puppy, a Vietnamese dog, while we were there, and an American vet, James Booth was his name. He made sure that my dog, Baby Son, was healthy and able to get shipped home, and he shipped her home on a Pan American airplane. It was wonderful to have her back. So anyway, that's kind of what we did over there.
President Harry Truman's domino theory was at the height of political thought at the time. Do you think that it's rational to think that other nations would have followed in Vietnam's steps?
No, I think it was propaganda. No, I don't. I don't believe in his domino theory. I really don't. There's a heck of a lot more that goes into it than that. Like, oh, this nation fell, well then this one will fall. That one, no. I don't believe it. Just because one country decides to flip and become communist, why would that encourage these others to give up everything they've got? It just wouldn't work that way. They'd have to come to the decision on their own, I think. But what do I know?
What are some things you saw in Vietnam that you don't think people at the time knew about?
Well, for one thing, there was an unwritten. It wasn't a law. It wasn't a rule. But it was an unwritten concept that we looked upon the Vietnamese as being lesser than. They weren't like 100% full-blown people. stature-wise, they were small people. But there was no, only in rare instances, like if you had a Vietnamese as an interpreter, if you could, like when I worked for Colonel Rice, we had Vietnamese that he was absolutely wonderful kid, absolutely a wonderful kid. And we loved him, and there was lots of respect, and on and on and on. But for the average, ordinary, run-of-the-mill person that you would see on just passing in the street or whatever, you didn't have respect. And it was nothing that was taught. It was nothing that was forced on you. It's just the way it was.
Why do you think that was?
I don't know if it's something, because like the North Vietnamese, they were going to be your enemy, right? I mean, that, for instance, in the 67 Tet Offensive, I walked down the street with the BC. I had no idea who they were. They looked a little different. They were wearing a different uniform, but I walked down the street with them on my way to the corner, and we had Marines that were billeted around the corner, and of course they had seen all this, and they're yelling at me, "Get over here, get over here, get over here." The VC had landed in the beach behind the back of our villa, and I had no idea. Absolutely. When I say 67, but it was actually the beginning of 68. And that's when they killed the BC, and they laid him out on the helicopter pad. There was about 12 or 13 of them out there, and they just left him there in the sun to bloat. I mean, it was just absolutely grotesque, horrible. And we had to, at the time, we had to leave our villa. We had to go out to the RMK base and stay there until they cleaned out the city. And at night, we would sit out they had a walkway and a little railing there, and we'd sit out there at night, and we would watch the tracers, the American military with the tracers and shooting into the rice paddies and whatnot. And then in the morning, everybody would go collect the bodies. And I mean, it was, I don't know. Yeah, did I see a lot of things? Yes, I saw a lot of things. There's a lot of it that I just don't talk about. And I can understand. I mean, because I practically lived with the military. Everything I did was with and for the military. But yes, there's a lot of it that I don't talk about, and I can understand why the GIs don't talk about it, because there just are no words. There really, for some of it, there just are no words.
The war in Vietnam is regarded as one of the most pointless wars the U.S. has ever been involved in. Do you believe that to be true?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We were there to get the natural resources, the untapped natural resources out of that country. Not only that, I happen to know for a fact that when we left, my buddy Russell Borchers, and his wife, we called her Sam, her name was Yvonne, but Sam, Russell's grandson was sent to Hanoi, and they were doing ARCO. He was running this ARCO project, and they did offshore drilling out of Hanoi, and that was right after the United States pulled out of Vietnam. And I know that to be a flat fact. So yeah, we were there. As I tell my family, it doesn't matter what the question is. The answer is money. And that is what it was all about. Unfortunately, we lost damn near 60,000 American soldiers for what?
Papers from the Pentagon later revealed the war was no longer fought to fight communism, but to avoid a humiliating U.S. defeat. Do you think the war in Vietnam led a lot of people to lose trust in our government?
Well, people had lost trust in our government during the first of all, it was never declared a war. It was a conflict. I mean, how do you lose damn near 60,000 military, but it's not considered a war? Anyway, it was for money. It was for greed. Johnson's wife, Lady Bird, owned Brown and Root, which was part of Raymond Morrison Knudsen, Brown, Root, Jones. I mean, now there's something that most people don't know. But yeah, her family owned Brown and Root. And we're going to keep this war going as long as we possibly can because they were making a fortune, an absolute fortune. Yeah, a lot of people lost. just the way we treated our military, just the whole miserable. When I came back, I couldn't talk. I couldn't talk about Vietnam because I was an enemy. I not only was in Vietnam as a American, I was there voluntarily. That made it even worse. So yeah. However, I will tell you one thing. I was awfully glad to get back to the United States. I love my country. I love my military. They were so good to me. Oh my God, they just treated me so beautifully. I have all the respect in the world for our military. It wasn't our soldiers' fault that we were there. They were ordered to be there. But yes, and what's going on with our government right now? Yeah, well, anyway.